Hi, my name is Alan Whitehouse. We're going to get started right now. I'm going to do a couple housekeeping things before we get going on our webinar of simplifying your budget process with True Sky. First of all of your phones are on hold right now, and that is to just keep down background noise. If you have some kind of problem during the webinar, like it seems like the screens aren't refreshing or you can't hear me, please type into the chat box in the GoToWebinar interface and let us know, and somebody will do their best to help you. At the end, we're going to hold all questions for now. At the end, we will open up for questions, and to do that, you will use the question box in the GoToWebinar interface to put in your questions. We're going to go for half hour, 45 minutes on this webinar, and I hope you find it informative. So what are we going to talk about during this time? Well, first we're going to talk about a little bit of the pain that you're currently experiencing doing budgeting and forecasting. Then we're going to talk about some of the implications of that pain within your organization. We're going to talk about our solution and what TrueSky is all about, and some of the benefits that you'll get by implementing TrueSky within your organization. So first, let's talk about the pain. Well, the number one pain I tend to hear from people when we're talking to them about their budgeting and forecasting processes, and this is probably because those of you out here, odds are you're still using Excel to manage your budget or forecasting process, is that at the end of the day, the numbers don't add up. 1 + 1 does not equal 3. And why is that? Well, traditionally, you've done a lot of interlinked Excel workbooks and worksheets, all with those different formulas that you're populating from different data sources and that you're manually manipulating. And at the end of the day, when you try to roll everything up into your comprehensive budget, things just don't add up because you've got broken links, you've got bad formulas, you've got missing data. And so you spend a huge amount of time trying to figure all that out. You also tend to have numbers that are far more outdated than you would like to have. I mean, because it takes so long to get them out of your host system, to get them manipulated and into the Excel workbooks, and because the process takes so long to compile and get everyone done, you're always left making decisions based on data that's a little bit older than you would like. And at the end, because you don't have any way to get any insights into the thought process behind the numbers and what your people were thinking, you're left making business decisions on an on an incomplete basis. So, what are some of the implications of this to your organization? Well, the biggest one is the amount of lost productivity that you have in your organization. There's a huge amount of hurry up and wait within your organization because, again, I'm waiting on somebody else to give me that Excel workbook so I can work on it. I'm waiting on numbers from the accounting group so I can have my backup documentation before I make any decisions. And if you start to add up that total amount of lost productivity across all your users, those dollars really start to add up. There's also a lot of finger pointing during the concept, right? If you ever heard, the phrase, those aren't my numbers, you can't hold me accountable to that. I didn't put those in there, right? Well, you get a lot of that in that situation, right? And people at the end of the day, they start losing confidence in the people, in the numbers, and in the process. And again, that's where you end up being. Everyone agrees that this concept, budgeting and forecasting in most organizations takes way too long to deal with from start to finish. And at the end, this is costing you money. So what is the solution? Well, our solution is TrueSky. And in a nutshell, we simplify the budgeting and forecasting process for companies using Excel. Now, TrueSky is a corporate performance management solution. So what does that mean? Well, we give you a couple different things. We provide tools that allow you to quickly and accurately capture budgets and forecasts from the right people in your organization who have the right knowledge. In fact, we actually facilitate the concept of getting more people involved in the process, more people who are closer to the action and who know their piece of the puzzle the best. We provide you tools that allow you to compare your budgets to your actuals to see how you're doing over the course of time. So are you, things going according to plan? If things are not going according to plan, we give you tools that allow you to do some deep dive analysis, try to find out where things are going wrong. Was this a timing issue? We thought it was February, turned out to be March. Do we not undertake an initiative? Does somebody leave the organization? Whatever the case may be. And then to package that all back up and report it back to your users who can use that information to re-budget, reforecast, replan, and continue that cycle of continual improvement. So what are some of the benefits that you'll get by deploying TrueSky in your organization? Well, there's quite a few, but the one I'm going to talk about right now is how much we can decrease the time and effort it takes to get through the budgeting process. Well, I'm going to start with what's typical for a lot of organization with the once a year big budget cycle, and it tends to start something like 120 days out. And if you look at the chevrons at the top, this is kind of how you end up spending your time when you're working with Excel. So you end up spending a lot of time creating Excel workbooks, right? And you're doing that each and every budget cycle. And why does it take so long? Well, you end up having to create one Excel workbook for each individual user or for each individual department or cost center, what have you, because, you know, by its nature, Excel isn't multi-user, and that's also the only way you can control security and who can see what information. Then it takes you quite a while to do the input phase and get all your people to put numbers into the system. Well, why does this take so long? Well, it's a couple things. One, people tend to not like doing budgeting and forecasting anyhow, so they tend to procrastinate on it. But you also haven't provided them the layouts and the tools that get them in and out of the process as quick as possible. Then you do your first level of review, and then comes that purple area, that painful merge, where you're trying to bring back all of that budget into one master document, and everything breaks. And you spend a huge amount of time trying to track down all those bad references and broken formulas. And then by the time you get ready to have to present this to your board of directors, your management, your owners, whatever the case may be, you've still rushed. And mistakes have happened, nor have you had enough time to prepare for all the different kind of what if questions that you're going to get. So then you got to come back and go back and forth and modify it before you can finalize the budget. Well, in the TrueSky world, you'll see something like what you see down below, where the time it takes to create drops dramatically because you have budget templates that are reusable from budget cycle to budget cycle and that automatically integrate with your source data. That you have layouts and tools that help get your people in and out of the process as quick as possible. And then that merge goes away completely and is handled automatically by the system. And then you gain that yellow box there, that box we call analyze and strategize. And that's where you really are able to spend time thinking about all the different what if questions that you might get from your management. So when you come times to present to the board of directors, your management, you've got all the answers right at hand and you can finalize the budget far quicker. Now, within TrueSky, we allow you to create unlimited data models. And what you're seeing up on screen here is one example, does not necessarily have to be your example. And again, this gives you a lot of flexibility to budget and forecast and report different ways for different processes within your organization. So as an example, you might have a financial model, what you're kind of seeing here right in the middle top, that's pulling data from your ERP system at a general ledger level. And that's where maybe you do things like SG&A expense type budgeting. At the same time, maybe you're building a dedicated revenue model that's pulling data from your ERP subledger, like your order entry system, your accounts receivable system, whatever the case may be there. And at the same time, combining it with data from your CRM system or your point of sale system. And when that revenue forecasting, which also might include budgeting on a per customer, per product, per sales story basis or what have you, is done, that data aggregates up and feeds into your financial model the same way a subledger feeds your general ledger in your financial system. And then maybe you're doing some kind of compensation model that's pulling data from your HR and payroll system at the same time. So again, you've got a lot of flexibility within the TrueSky environment. I'm talking a little bit about kind of the heart of what we do, which is the assignment and report generation process. And then we're going to get on to really showing you some of our software here. This is really what happens within your organization. So in your organization, you're going to designate someone in the role of designer. And that's a person who's got really good Excel skills. And they're actually going to take Excel, the same Excel you're used to working with today, and create a template, which is Excel integrated with the TrueSky environment. Now, you might think this is a little strange because I just spent a lot of time talking about how bad Excel is for budgeting. But in reality, Excel has probably the best end user interface for individual users to do budgeting and forecasting possible. I mean, this is a product that's 25 years old, I think now. It's very mature, very robust, has had hundreds of millions of dollars spent in R&D over the lifetime of this product. And it has a depth and breadth of features and functionality that is unmatched. Problem is, it tends to break down in a multi-user budgeting and forecasting environment. And that's where we really come in, because we're going to take away all that pain. So you're going to get the best of both worlds when it comes to TrueSky. So once you have your different templates created for your different business processes, keep in mind that everything we do is stored in a centralized database. So one of those big changes of what you're doing today is no shared drives, no emailing Excel workbooks back and forth. We control everything centrally, and you therefore get that same kind of control. So once you have your different templates created, someone who's an administrator is going to take one of those templates. They're going to combine it with security settings, so who can see what information, and your approval flows, and create either an assignment or a report. Assignments allow for data input. Reports are by their very nature read-only. You can slice and dice, but you can't change. And though the really magic happens though is when each user opens up TrueSky on their desktop, they get their own copy in Excel that they can edit within parameters that you prescribe, yet every time they hit save, all those numbers are saved instantly in real time to the back-end database. So with that, I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to stop the slides, and I'm going to go over to show you a little bit of our actual application. Okay. Let me get right to the right place here. There we go. All right, so right now, up on your screen, all of you should be seeing Excel. And again, remember, TrueSky works within the Excel environment. So the tabs that you're used to working with, home, insert, page layout, and so forth, are all there available for you. You see, now we come in this little tab here, TrueSky. First thing I like to point out is by default, TrueSky supports multiple languages, okay? So I have language packs installed for English, Spanish, and French right now. This allows organizations, if you have the need, if you are multilingual, across borders for your budgeting, to have each individual user, one system, but your individual users working in the language of their choice. And again, we deal with all the different regional settings as well, how different countries tend to view things like the thousands separator, a comma versus a space versus a period, or the decimal separator as a period versus a comma. Handle all of that so people can work in an environment that is comfortable to them, yet you're still working off of the same data sets. I'm going to switch back to English here. Now, a bulk of what I'm going to do is under this tab that's called the Hub. The Hub is the central area where a user goes to interact with all things TrueSky. They only have to worry about what's in the Hub here. Now, I'm seeing three tabs. I'm seeing assignments, which are input sheets. I'm seeing reports, which are just those reports. And because I'm one of the designers that I mentioned earlier, I'm seeing templates, which are the raw Excel documents that are used to create assignments and reports. Under assignments, as an example, under my annual budget cycle, you can see that I have 4 different things I have to work on. I have to work on admin expenses, travel expenses, sales revenue, and project revenue. I'm just going to widen this up a little bit here. And for reports, I have access to a budget versus actual review, an executive dashboard, and a couple of different income statements. This is what I see when I log into the system. I'm seeing 4 different reports and these 4 different input assignments. Somebody else logs in, they may only see 1 input assignment and 3 reports. Again, everything that TrueSky does dynamically adjusts to the individual user based on their security settings and what has been configured by an administrator. This is how we spoon feed usage of TrueSky to end users, and they only ever have to worry about what they see here. You don't have to worry about, okay, this is for you, this file on the shared drive is yours, you use this file, you send me this, we handle all of that for you. Now I'm going to focus on admin expenses for this. So within the application, you have the ability to control things like start and end dates. So if you've ever had situations of people entering data before it's ready, you can prevent that. But more importantly, if you've ever had the situation where people have edited numbers and you thought the budget was done and no one else is working on it, you can actually lock people out at a prescribed time so you don't have to worry about changes happening after the fact that you weren't ready for. All right. Now, under admin expenses, so here we also have a workflow approval going on here. So within TrueSky, there is a very robust workflow approval engine built in that you can choose to use if you want to route your numbers for approval. And again, this handles things on both the simple and the complex side of things. So on the simple side of things, obviously we can handle that 8 users reports to 4 reports to 2 report to 1, that kind of perfect pyramid. But on the more complex side, we can handle things such that I'm responsible for doing data entry for Department A and Department B. Department A goes to one person and Department B goes to another for approval. Yet at the third level, they all come back to one other individual for approval. So again, we handle things like split approvals, dotted line approvals, whatever term you want to use for that. Now I'm going to open up my admin expenses input template for the rest of this presentation. And what the system's doing now is going out to Excel and pulling back a template and rendering it specifically for me. Got this a little bit large here. So first tab, we tend to show instructions. Again, not everyone is budgeting and forecasting every day. So you like to remind them about some of the rules, how to work with the system, any kind of guidance such that, increases over 20% are not acceptable, right? So you give all of that to them. But a bulk of what I'm going to show you is going to be in this tab that's called the Input tab. So right down the side here, these are my filters. These are my slicers of data. And again, these are my slicers. I've got a slicer for department. I've got a slicer for location, slicer for version because we support unlimited versioning of your budget, and I've got a slicer for currency because we also support doing multiple budgeting in different currencies. So again, not only are we multilingual, we're also multinational, where you can have certain operations budgeting in one currency, other operations budgeting in another currency, and then you can convert back and forth between the two. These are my slicers for my presentation. Your slicers might be completely different based on your business, as well as the business process at the time that you are budgeting for. Excuse me. Now, if I wanted to work with a different department, I would simply click on my little edit icon there, and up would pop a window of the departments that I have access to. Now, again, this list grows and shrinks dynamically based on security settings. So I'm seeing this full list of departments. Another user logs in, they may only see one or two departments based on their security settings. Again, everything dynamically adjusts. We can also give you hierarchical or tree views of your data. Now, these are fantastic for reporting. So as an example, I can pull back data from my Toronto HQ, or I can decide instead, you know what? I want to take data from my Toronto operations. I'm going to combine it with data from my Vancouver warehouse, as well as my LA office. And now it will either aggregate those numbers together for me in real time, or lay them out on columns side by side, depending on the particular format of what I'm working with. This is what allows your people to have this unlimited kind of slice and dice capability without you having to have created thousands of different variations of the different reports. So I'm going to go ahead and retrieve data from my admin department for my Toronto HQ. And what it's doing now is going out to the database now that I made my selections and started retrieving data specifically for me. And I think I may have just lost my connection to our server, so pause with me for just a second. Let me go bring things back up here. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. So what I went ahead and did is just completed my retrieve there. My connection did drop for a second. So I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit. Okay, first thing I like to show you, and I closed my filter pane here just so you know, so that was my filters, and I'm just closing it to get a little bit more real estate here. What you see on rows and what you see on columns, color, shading, font control, all of this is configurable for your organization and how you want things to work. I am capturing budget for 3 months at a time and showing 3 months of actuals and 3 months of variance at a time. You can be doing 12 months at a time. You can be doing 60 months at a time on a rolling forecast basis. I'm budgeting on a monthly basis, but we also support budgeting daily, weekly, quarterly, and yearly, depending on your specific requirement. And different business processes can be on different calendars. We support things like 13 periods in a year, 445, 454 retail type calendars. All of that can be configured based on your particular requirements. Everything you also see on the screen here is also controlled by security. So as an example, I create a document once and roll it out to 100 different people. If one of those people don't get access to the supply software account, they won't see it on the scene. They won't see it on the screen. They only create one thing. When it comes to working with the system as an end user, it's very user friendly. I just simply come in here and type in the numbers that I want to see. I can do the copy paste just like I can in Excel, I can do this click and drag thing. I don't know if it's got a real name. And if you look at the formula that I am typing in right here, this is an Excel formula, not an Excel-like formula, which a lot of other applications force you to use that are kind of close, but not exactly, that cause a lot of confusion. And the moment I hit save, my numbers are saved to the backend database in real time, where they're instantly available for anyone else to see these without having to worry about any kind of check in and check out, saving documents back and forth, and what have you. Now, we're not just the wild, wild west of Excel. So if I try to change, say, an actual, it's going to lock me down and prevent me from doing that. If I try to add a row or delete a column, those things that tend to break using Excel in a multi-user environment, I can't do that either. But if I am the kind of person who is addicted to using my color scales or my data bars, I have that type of functionality available for me. We've also taken it quite a bit further than just Excel. So one of the things that we give you that Excel completely lacks is complete audit trails, all right? So anytime someone makes a change in TrueSky, we tag what is that change, what was the date and time, and who was the user that made that change, and what was the assignment in play that happened. And if you see a number that you like better, you can actually, or older, a prior number, you can actually copy that number back. This is how we get around that whole finger pointing that happens with, hey, I didn't make those changes, I don't know where those numbers came from. You know, we're making budgeting more collaborative, but we're also holding everyone accountable and giving you that instant feedback of how you got here with your numbers. We also give you the ability to capture qualitative information along with the quantitative information. So we really think it's important that to have some insight into what your people are thinking when they do budgeting is just as valuable as having numbers themselves, because it's kind of how you gauge whether or not their numbers are realistic. So a lot of times in Excel, you'll use that right mouse click and add a comment. But the problem is when you roll up all your Excel worksheets, those comments don't roll up, right? And you lose all of that great commentary. Well, TrueSky allows you to do all of that online. So you can put as many notes that are in. The difference with us is our notes are tagged to the data and they're stored in the database and they travel with the database. So anytime I enter a note, it instantly is available in any other report, any other input sheet where that piece of data resides. So as an example, you can see here, we have someone talking about how, you know what, if we don't get a new printer, we're not going to be able to send out invoices. And then somebody else is asking about, okay, that makes sense. You can also, you know, add as many new notes as you want right here. You can even do attachments. So if you've got a copy of a business case in Word, justifying this, you can put it on here. If you have a quote from a vendor if you have a quote from a vendor, I wrote up on screen in PDF, you can open it here and it will be available for everyone to see. These notes are how we actually make budgeting more collaborative and try to get everyone on the same page. All right, so that's kind of the notes. Now, what else have we done that kind of takes us beyond just a data input thing? Well, provided a whole series of what we call data tools. And the goal of these tools is to get your people not only in and out of the system quicker and get your numbers quicker, but also to hopefully increase the accuracy of your numbers. So let's say I'm one of those users that I just like to, you know, take the numbers for the year, what I'm spending for the year, and allocate it equally over each of the cells. Now, instead of me going cell by cell by cell, if I was going to do $20,000, I could come up here in my data tools and type in 20,000. And for my drop down here, I'm going to show you even. And now when I hit replace, you'll see it took that 20,000 and allocated it evenly over those three cells. Well, maybe that's great, but maybe you're also an organization that has some kind of seasonality to your business, right? Well, if you know that you've got some seasonality, you can build those kind of rules in. So I've got a rule here that says, you know what, the first month of every quarter, we get a big bump up. So now when I pick start high and I hit replace, you'll see that it allocates more to January and less to February and March. Okay, so now I've got this. Now, maybe the other thing you want to think about is maybe the best way to gauge this year's flows, our ebbs and flows, is based on last year's actuals. So here when I took actuals, you see actuals over here go low, high, low. Now when I do actuals and I hit replace, you'll see it allocated my 20,000 on the same ratio. So I go low, high, low. So again, just giving your people some better access to some numbers. Now I'm just copying some numbers here randomly to show you the next thing. So let's say I put all these numbers in and my boss tells me you've got to decrease this stuff by 23.5%. Well, in Excel, that's a really difficult thing other than going cell by cell and editing or copying out, do a formula, copying back in. But instead, I can come up here to my data tools and go 23.5, and now I'm going to choose percent. And here, every time I hit the decrease button, my numbers decrease by 23.5%. Or if I get the OK for a spending spree, now every time I hit increase, the cells that I increase are, nope, not by 1,000%. Sorry about that. Let me just put in some non-negative numbers here to show you this. So I meant to change that to value. So now for all these cells, every time I hit increase, they increase by 1,000 or decrease by 1,000. So again, the goal here is to get rapid data manipulation, but also at the end of time, get your people in and out of quicker and increase the quality of your numbers. So those are the data tools. Now, other thing that we do is, again, trying to get everyone on the same page and getting all of that great budget information in one place. Oftentimes in your budgeting, you'll see a situation like this, where I'm going to show this line here, which is employee training. So in many organizations, you ask your people to budget to this level, employee training, and you roll this out to your department managers, and what do? Well, they got to create their own spreadsheet on their desktop that lists all of their team members, what classes they're going to take, what month, and what the dollars are. And then they sum that up and they copy all of that data back to your master workbook. The problem is you tend to lose all of that great data. Either you don't know that all that backup documentation exists, or it stays on their desktop and they delete it by mistake or what have you. Well, we allow you to add that kind of detail online in real time as you're building your budget. So here you can see that I have budgeted for these two classes, HR best practices and managerial. If I wanted to add a new line, I could say add detail, and I can say my next training class, whatever the case may be. I can put in a dollar amount here. And now when I hit save, not only does it save my top line numbers, but it also saves these detailed line numbers. So when I go to my submit to approval, my boss can immediately look at this and say, hey, Alan, I think you're going a little too heavy in training. You need to cut back. Or 6 months from now, when we're doing a budget to actual report on a completely different layout, and we want to know why are we under budget for employee training? Well, guess what? I can open this up and say, oh, well, we had budgeted for Jane to go to 2 classes, and she has since left the organization, so we didn't have to do that, right? So that's why we are under budget. So again, goal of this is to try to centralize all of your important budget data and get everyone on the same page and avoid all those one-off emails that go back and forth. This documentation maybe gets lost. Again, just getting you all more efficient and making everything more collaborative. All right. Now, as I've been entering, you may have noticed that some of these cells in this, these little indicators have gone from green to yellow to red. Well, that's our visual clue that you haven't met some form of guidance. So if you remember on the first tab of our instructions, we were talking about increases of greater than 20% were not allowed. So we've allowed you to set up these rules that give your people feedback, but also enforce some of the budget rules that you've put into play. So as an example, I've set up a rule that looks at any one given cost line item and compares what I'm spending now, my budget, against what I spent last year. And if I'm doing a 0 to 10% increase, I get a green. If it's a 10 to 20% increase, I get a yellow. If it's over a 20% increase, I get a red. Now I'm going to hit my little validate button here. And you can see immediately it shows me all of those places where I did not meet guidance, right? And it gives me the immediate feedback of what is wrong with my numbers. This can also be integrated with the workflow approval process, such that, okay, you get greens, they go in, submit, no problem, go in clean. You get yellows when you go to submit for approval. Maybe you get some warnings that say, hey, you're a little bit out of bounds, but we're going to let you continue submission, but you might get rejected. And if you really want to get control of the process and speed things up, you can say, hey, you've got a red on the board. You can't even submit for approval because it's just going to get rejected anyhow, and you're wasting everybody's time. So again, just one of the greater ways that we added the control process of doing budgeting and forecasting. And again, hopefully first time through, give you far better numbers. All right. Other things that we do, again, to take us to the next level, is giving you the ability to immediately drill back down to source data. So as an example, if I wanted to find out, I was doing this budgeting just to sell, how did I spend $135,000 in Q1? A lot of times, I would have to then email or call up the accounting and finance group and ask them to run a report for me for my department or my location or what have you, and show me all the AP and purchase order transactions. And you know what that does? That adds to the workload of accounting and finance. There's a delay. I may have to wait. I'm requesting it late in the day on Friday, and I won't get it until Monday or what have you. Well, we can give you the ability to drill down to that additional detail. Now, one of the things that TrueSky does differently from almost any other budgeting solution that I know of out there is that when we say drill down, you're not drilling down just to more data in the TrueSky database, like those applications force you to do just data in their database. We're drilling back into up to the second data in your host system. Right, so we're making real life calls back into your host system, like your ERP system. So right here, when I say links, purchasing transactions, right here, it's going to show me all of the purchasing transactions I have. Now, a couple things. One, we have security around this before anyone asks, keeping people out of areas that they shouldn't see. So they shouldn't see payroll accounts or something like that. Second, we have intelligence on this. So it knows what accounts I had up on screen didn't bring me back every GL account we had. It knows what department and what location I was for. So it only alerted on that. Also was configured such that it didn't bring me back 10 years of PO data, only the data for the quarter that I was on. And again, those kind of flags are all configurable by you, as are the columns that you see up across the top here. But here you see I'm seeing things like my account number, my account description, my purchases amount, my total amount, and I can sort from lowest to highest or highest to lowest, on those totals. And I can get some information there. But let me do a little bit more analysis. You know what? I want to see what were my top 10 purchases I made during that time. Well, I don't want to add that up in my head. So how much was that? Well, my top 10 purchases came to $19,000 is kind of how I'm spending that money. So let me go ahead and clear that out. Well, let me do some other things. Well, who was I spending it with? Well, I was spending money on company cars, company meetings. Well, maybe I want to pull in and see my second tier, my vendor name. Well, here's, supply software. Well, I spent money with Adobe, CamSoft, Mobile Warehouse. What did I spend with Mobile Warehouse? Well, I got an Office upgrade, but I also got a tablet purchase, right? So it got booked to the wrong GL account, right? So the goal here is to give your people information at their fingertips for what they need to make the proper business decisions and take the workload off of the accounting and finance group. And again, make sure everyone's on the same page. So that's kind of our drill to detail. And again, something we do very differently than a lot of other applications that are out there. Now, up to this point, I've shown how TrueSky is a data collection tool from budget and forecast, a monitoring tool showing you those budgets to actuals and my variances. Again, and I showed you a little bit of the analytics just right there, but we're also a reporting tool. Again, any data that we have in TrueSky can be reported on, including doing full financial statements, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, if that's what you want to do. Again, being able to slice them by things like department location, run them for an organization as whole, whatever your structure is like. And here what I'm doing is going out and generating one in real time. Now this is going to be a simple income statement. Everyone's all over the map as to how their looks and feel, but this illustrates the point. So first, I'm seeing some very high-level catalog, my total revenue, salaries, benefits, and admin expenses. And again, I'm seeing a total for the year and a total budget and a variance. But now I can start expanding a little bit more on what I'm seeing here. So for total revenue, right, I've broken it down to a next level down of categorizing by project versus consulting revenue versus sales. Yet for my admin expenses, I'm going all the way down to the individual GL account. But up across the top, now there's my breakdown by month, and you can see that I'm bringing in actuals for the first part of the month, and then for the first part of the year, the forecast for the rest. And this is using our time intelligence feature. That means that the next month I run this, it will automatically bring one more month of actual in and one less month of forecast. And again, I can then compare that to my budget, to budget 1, budget 2, whatever, and see any kind of variance that I've got going on. And I can do these same kind of drill downs from here that I was talking about earlier. So again, any kind of reporting, any kind of grafting and charting that you can do in Excel, you can do in TrueSky. Right? So we give you one tool that allows you to do all of that. All right, so that kind of shows you our functionality. And I'm going to do a quick wrap-up slide, and then we will open it up for any kind of questions that you might have. All right, so what are the benefits that you'll see by deploying TrueSky in your organization? Well, first is a dramatic reduction in the amount of time it takes to get through a budget cycle, by sometimes more than 50%. And again, that's because of how automated we can make the process, templates cycling over automatically from budget cycle to budget cycle and so forth. So you're going to see a dramatic time. And if you're trying to get down to doing quarterly reforecasts or that holy grail of rolling forecasts on a monthly basis, we can help make that happen. You're going to be given an administrative interface that I didn't show you that was designed from the ground up to be controlled by the finance group in your organization with minimal to no IT involvement on a day-to-day basis. Again, so whether it be setting security, adding users, creating your templates to use in assignments or reports, you'll be able to do that as a member of the finance group. Thanks to the tools and the controls that we can provide, you're going to get more accurate numbers for your people. And at the end, when you combine it with the notes and everything else that we provide, you're not going to get raw data, but you're going to get actionable information that you can use to make business decisions. So with that, I'm going to take a pause and open it up for questions. And again, if you want to ask questions, you can type them into the GoToMeeting question bar, and I will answer them. Right up here, I'm going to put our contact information. So again, if you'd like more information, feel free to go out to our website and request some more information. Before you drop off, all of you, I would like to say thank you for your time and taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen to what we have to say. I hope some of what I've showed you, you found informative and interesting. And with that, I'll take a pause and just open it up for questions. Again, I know it's not a quick interface, so I will let people give them a minute here to type anything in if anyone does have a question. All right, so I do have a question here. Are there space size limits on the server with regards to what the system process can handle? That's a, so the question is, again, are there space size limits on the server with regards to what the system process can handle? Like anything else, you know, the more data, the more years of data and everything else, you know, the more you can affect performance, and that's true of almost any application. However, you can size hardware now rather easily as well. For TrueSky, most of all of our heavy lifting is done by the server within the SQL Server environment. So that means that you only really heavily have to, you know, if you've got huge data sets, invest in the server box and not individual workstations. Again, we have clients that scale up to, you know, where they've got a decade's worth of data in there and pulling financial statements where they're comparing a decade's worth of data on that. So again, we design the application to be very scalable and take advantage of hardware where it can. I hope that answers your question. As far as amount of data, it's really just limited to whatever hard disk space you have available. I hope that answers your question, and I'll wait for any other questions here we've got. All right, another couple of questions here. Let me see here. Oh, he was just saying I did answer his question. All right, Jimmy, thank you for that feedback. Again, I'll stay on here for another minute or so if anyone has questions. And again, when you exit, I think it'll give you a little survey thing. Feel free to request information if you want to find out more, or just visit us at the website up on the screen. All right, well, it seems like no more questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar now. Again, if after you end up leaving here, you think of some questions, you'd like some more information, you see us up on the screen here. And I'll just like to thank you all for taking the time today, and have a great day.